Well, today I'm going to tie a little bit of a creation that I received these special hooks from a friend of mine in the mail. Dennis sent me these, and he asked me to tie whatever I could come up with on these hooks and then send him some pictures and let him know. Well, as you can see, this hook right here, he cast these, and he cast that second loop on the back for a dropper. Well, the first two flies that I tied, I decided to tie what I call a mini slump buster, but you can kind of see where the two hooks are at. They're real easy to tie. Since you're using it for a dropper, I thought you'd want to get all the action that you could get with a fly that's pretty much hanging steady underneath your indicator. So I thought, well, what gives me more action than rabbit? So I went ahead and thought about it, and I decided to tie a mini slump buster. So I tied this one in black, which to me has always been a successful color for trout and bass and bluegill. So the next thing I decided to do was, I have all these different rabbit zonker strips, so I tied one up in this color here with a black tail. So you can see the hook right there, and then there's the head and the eye. So I'm going to tie this color up again just like this. But if you notice, the third one that I got from Dennis didn't have the dropper eye on the back. No big deal for me anyway. I'll just tie a dropper on the end of the hook bend. But let's get started. So he cast these himself, and generally what I like to do is take a very small file very carefully and kind of clean it up so that I can get my thread and everything to lay down. So I just clean the flashing up on his lead. Not anything very important. It just kind of eases me installing the thread. Be very careful you don't touch that point. And you notice how the lead kind of moves around on the hook shank. Well, the ones that he made with the dropper eye really move around, and he suggests in his little letter that you lash it down and then super glue it. So I'm going to go ahead and put a dam of thread in the front of this, just like I did on the one with the dropper eyes, and I'm going to bring it back, and I'm going to wrap right underneath it and right behind it. And I'm just going to go ahead and tighten everything up here. I don't really care if this one moves around with the slump buster pattern on it, because it's a universal 360-degree pattern, so a fish can view it from almost any direction, and that's no big deal. So now that I've got this down, I'm not even going to bother with the super glue or anything like that, but I'm going to keep my thread right there in the back. When you're doing this, be very careful of that hook point. So now what I'm going to do is build up enough to tie on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my black zonker strip. Now this here is pine squirrel. And the reason I'm telling you it's pine squirrel is it's much shorter. Okay? So now that I'm realizing this fly rides like this in the water, I want my pine squirrel to be up right side up. So I'm going to tie it upside down. And I'm just going to tie it right there in the bend, just like that, and lash it down. Make sure that the leather is upside down. And I'm going to go ahead and tie this in good and tight. And I'm going to come underneath it with one, cinch it, and another one, cinch it. And this tail should not create any problems for me while I'm fishing. So I'm going to leave my thread there. And now I've got some of this crazy color that I know trout just seem to like, because everybody ties glow balls and stuff like that out of it. So I'm going to go ahead and clean off the leather just a little so I can have a place to tie in, if you can see it right there. And now I'm going to, and if you notice the direction the fur is going, I'm tying it in at the point of the fur, and I'm just going to go ahead and tie in that leather right in behind that lead. And I'm going to cinch it all down good and tight again, because I don't want this to pull out. And that's pretty good. Now I'm just going to run my thread up to the front. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and start wrapping. So I'm going to take this leather and lay it down flat. And make sure the fibers are pointing back. Notice how I go past that bend and around. And then I kind of draw everything back. And now I'm going to just put it right in front of the last one. Let me clear all this out. There we go. And now I get past that point again. And I'm just going to go ahead. And I'm not pulling really hard on this leather. I'm just kind of keeping it nice and stretchy. And I'm just going to keep wrapping forward just like this with touching wraps. Now, the one thing with Dennis's lead, he's got such a drop off there. And I'm not going to try and drop it in like that. I'm going to come right in front of it and go straight to the hook shank, if you can see that. And now I've got it wrapped in, and I come around and comb everything back again. And now as I do this, I bring my thread up and over the leather and tie in a couple. Just nicely done. Couple in there, just like that. And now I'm ready. Notice it just kind of slid down. That's okay. And now I'm here. So what I'm going to do now is reach in, pull back, and cut my leather. And now we're going to create the head of this fly. Pull everything back and start creating the head of the fly. And I'm tightening it down. Notice how I'm not anywhere on that eye. And I'm just going to keep going. I'm using size 8 thread, by the way. I don't really feel I need anything heavier, and I'm just going to go ahead and keep going until I can get my head pretty close to being covered with thread in black. I really like that. And again, we're just going to keep going. There we go. Now it's cooking. And I'm going to go ahead and bring it in, tighten this all up. And again, we're going to whip finish. And that's pretty much everything that this fly is. One. Let's keep this all away. This stuff is pretty soft. And 5, and tighten it up. I really, really like rabbit and squirrel, and the pulsation that I get in the water with this. So now the tail's too long, so I'm just going to bring the tail up, pull it all the way up, and then I'm going to cut the leather right in front of the eye, about a 1/16 or so in front of the eye. And there's the length of my tail. And so now, little head cement there, and we're done. But this is the way it'll ride in the water. That zonker strip up. And there you go, Dennis. There's one of the flies that I'm going to be fishing with the hook that you tied, or created, actually. Thank you very much for it, and I'll talk to you later.